Welcome to the Academy of Self-Mastery, where transformation meets action. I am Eugene Holden. I'm one of your guides on this journey of personal growth, mindset shifts, and deep self-awareness. Each episode, we dive into the tools, wisdoms, and strategies you need to break through limitations and step into your highest potential. There is no fluff here. There are no shortcuts, just real conversations, practical insights, and a community dedicated to mastery in every area of life. So, if you're ready to unlock your power, elevate your mindset, and create a life by design, then let's get started. Welcome to the Academy of Self-Mastery podcast. Welcome to the deep end. Let's dive in. Hey, good day, everybody. Good day. Welcome to the Academy of Self-Mastery. I'm Eugene Holden, one of your hosts, and I have my co-host with me today, the magnificent Elle Grinnell, and we'll be talking a little bit more with Elle in just a moment. But I want to let you know again what the Academy of Self-Mastery is all about. It is about tapping into those things, into those false beliefs and stuff that may have kept us back, from living our greatest lives. People have asked me, Eugene, why is the S in self-mastery? Why is that a lowercase s? Well, because our higher self, the capital S, doesn't need mastering. It's the master of who we are, right? So what we are talking about here is that ego self that's being mastered. And that's what we are all about here, so that we may step into living the lives that we came here to live. And I want to introduce you to another co-host. As you can probably tell now, I have three co-hosts, and we will be rotating. And today I have my dear beloved friend that I've been knowing for over 20 years. This is the magnificent Elle Grinnell. How are you, Elle?
I'm wonderful, and even more so now that we're sharing time together.
Yeah. Elle and I have been knowing
Okay.
each other for a long time, but let me tell you a little bit more about my beautiful friend. Elle Grinnell has a passion for motivation that began over 35 years ago when she became a self-help junkie with a focus on the relationship between neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, the different languages of learning styles, and quantum physics. She has coached and led hundreds of people to a happier and healthier life, one thought and action at a time. That's important. One thought and action at a time. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. Her latest book, Get Happier, Fitter, and Off the Meds Now: 7 Steps to a Healthier Body, You Love, was just released on Amazon, where it reached hot new release status in 3 categories in the first 24 hours. Again, the name of that book by Elle Grinnell is Get Happier, Fitter, and Off the Meds Now: 7 Steps to a Healthier Body You Love, the healthier body that you love. Okay, and you can go catch that on Amazon. So I have to take a breath here, because anyway. Elle Grinnell has a passion for motivation. She is nationally recognized keynote speaker and who currently resides in Mazatlan, Mexico, I do believe. And yes. She is an ordained minister, was ordained along with me back in 2005. And, here's the thing. Okay, that's her bio. This is what I know about my dear friend Elle, is that Elle is all heart. Elle holds no punches, takes off the gloves in a very sweet way, but it is really all about helping people to get to where they say they want to be. So again, welcome, Elle. Glad that you have joined me on this beautiful, beautiful platform of helping people, assisting others in remembering who they are.
Thank you. When I hear my bio, I hear Steve Urkel in my head going, "Did I do that?"
Right? Yeah. And
Because it's decades of stuff, right?
right, right. You know, I only read one or two paragraphs. There's so much more there, so much more. But what's important is that, you know, I want everyone to know that L is here as a light to help you shine your light.
Mhm.
And so, as before we came on, I was asking my dear friend L, so what is it that you want to talk about? What's on your heart? So that's what we're going to jump into right now. What's on your
Mhm.
heart, my beautiful friend?
Mm. You know, what's on my heart every day in these times is no matter what oppression may be appearing or presenting, when we continue to shine our light, live in love, express love, help people on or off the bus, you know what I mean? Get something off the shelf, call somebody because you're getting the thought, you know, oh, check in with this person, then that stuff can't touch us. That negative vibrational energy stays out there. And we begin to expand our positive love and light, and the darkness just can't stay. So what's on my heart is to encourage everybody to stay hopeful and loving and kind. And that's the way we're going to see through.
Yeah, yeah. You know, as cliche and as corny as this may sound, right, is, you know, love is the way. And as corny as that may sound to some people, but
Mhm.
that's the truth. And nothing, and it hasn't changed. You know, and I bring this up often, El, where back in, I think it was 1967, Jackie DeShannon had this song, and then Dionne Warwick did it the next year in '68. What the world needs now is love, sweet love, right? And that's the truth. With all that's going on, you know, it's like that's where we are to come back to. That's what we are to remember. I love that word, remember, to remember, to become a member once again of the source, to the source of, you know, love, to remember that we are loved, to remember that we are loved and loving. Yeah.
Yes. I have clients and students who come to tears when we do the concept of love and self-love,
Yeah.
like forgetting how amazing you are and that you can take yourself to the point of exhaustion when you're just giving and giving and giving. And yes, receiving is difficult for some people. And the
Yeah.
next step that's even more difficult is self-love,
Yeah.
to know I am love.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, working with clients, you know, it's interesting. I mean, that just that topic right there, you know, self love, you know, it's so very hard for some people to love themselves, and it's because I believe that we have been miseducated through the years, even when, you know, when we were born and then grew up. You know, it's we were, well, from my perspective and my experience, you know, and especially during around the holidays, you know, the Christmas holidays specifically, it's better to give than to receive,
Yeah.
right? And so, you know, it's interesting how you can tell how a people how people receive by just giving them a compliment,
Yeah.
because, oh, you are a great person, they go, yeah, and so are you. They want to push it off because we're not used to, as a culture, to receiving that. So that self-love is important. And one of the, for me, one of the deep topics and the really powerful act of self-love is self-forgiveness.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. For all things big and small.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no matter how far back sometimes you need to go, you
Yeah.
know. And so one time, so I'm a secondhand survivor of domestic violence. I mean, my father used to beat my mother. He never beat us, but we were witness to it, you know. So we never knew that we weren't next, right? We're just little kids. So you're living in that fear. And in my adult life, there was a time when I told my mother through tears, I could barely choke it out, I am so sorry for hiding and never helping you because I was afraid for myself. And she, through tears, said, I'm so sorry that that happened to you because I allowed, you know, the situation to. perpetuate. So there was something really freeing about us both apologizing. I was sorry for not being helpful, and she was sorry that I had to be sorry, so to speak.
Mm.
Right. And it was a great
Yeah.
moment of cutting the tether
Yeah.
of the guilt around that for decades, and
Yeah.
being able to move forward as to that was an experience that, God willing, we survived, literally, because not everybody does.
Right.
And then we're able to help others in that have been through that scenario through empathy.
Yeah. Al, let me ask you a question coming back to forgiveness, right? Or more specifically, self forgiveness. In your estimation, why do you think it's difficult for some people to forgive self?
Well, the first thing that pops immediately into my head is ego. And so self forgiveness means really looking at what happened, and then admitting your role in it. Because a lot of times we can look at things and say, well, that wasn't my fault. And saying fault is not exactly correct. You were just there, it just happened. And so when we can step away from the ego trying to keep us from anything being our fault, blame others, then it's hard to self forgive, because when we look at, well, what was our role? So what was my role in not helping my mother all those years ago? So the forgiveness would come in the fact that I was in self preservation mode. And that's nothing that you need to forgive yourself for. Right. And so what I was forgiving myself for was not being old enough emotionally to understand what was really going on.
Hmm.
It was like if you threw a 10-pound bag of flour at a 4-year-old, they would stumble, fall, and probably hurt themselves because they're not physically ready. Well, the same thing goes true with our emotions. When these things get thrown at us and we're not emotionally developed, then we get scarred. And nobody talks about the scars on the inside
Right.
ever.
Right.
Ever, because you don't see them.
Right.
So I have a scar on my hand and people go, well, what happened? Nobody ever goes, are you scarred on the inside? Can
Right.
we talk about that?
Right.
But you do hear others' stories and you go, oh, let's talk about that
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Going through stuff, like I love life and the experiences of the past, right? Just going through stuff, which, getting to the point, and I've gotten to this point, years ago, right? All that stuff made me the person who I am now. And going through a period 27 plus years ago, going through a divorce and all that, and was just at my lowest of lows. And one of the things, I think the most powerful step I took was forgiving the people involved, but then also taking responsibility for my role and then forgiving me. And then once I started down that path and things began to slowly shift, I won't say that it was like, ta-da, I have arrived. It took, because it takes work, because the ego wants to pull us back.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Pull us
Yes.
back to what's comfortable. And there's nothing comfortable about pain.
No, and it's homeostasis. We're hardwired, right? Because I've been doing decades of research in the neuroscience. I'm just so fascinated by the brain, and we're hardwired for homeostasis. And that's why when we see people who are adrenaline junkies, we're like, what's wrong with you? They aren't as wired as non-adrenaline junkies are, right? So we're all wired, most of us basically the same, and homeostasis is what is meant to keep us alive. Whereas in this day and age, not being able to change and adapt is what will kill you. That's what will
Right.
lead to anxiety and,
Right.
heart and that. So it has switched, but the brain hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a very key point, not being able to change. That's what will kill us, right? Not physically, but well, possibly too, but not
Mhm.
having the ability to change. I want to go this far, Elle, say not having the willingness to change. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know,
Absolutely.
and it's interesting to me to watch, all the clients that I've had throughout the years and students and speaking engagements and all of that, and how where people have such energy around. I don't want to change. I don't want this to change. When change is the only thing that really doesn't change. It's change. Right. I mean, there's always an exchange of, oxygen, inhale, exhale. A good thing I changed my clothes, but there's always this change. But we get to change the way we think. We get to change
Yes.
the way that we look at things. We get to change, let me question my perspectives, which
Mhm.
causes me to change. Who
Yeah.
says that that's the right way to do it?
Yes, that's a great question. According to whom?
According to whom?
And the other thing that's difficult is sometimes leaving our tribe, because back in the day, leaving your tribe meant certain death. Right now,
Right.
who's going to be there? But if those people want to stay in the pity party and woe is me, and you get together and you drink and you talk about your problems all the time, then when you start to elevate, you read the books, you get the coaches, you go back to church, whatever it is, and you start to change. One of the best compliments is if people say to you, "You've changed,"
Yeah.
to which you answer, "Thanks for noticing."
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes we do have to leave people behind, and that includes family members,
Yeah.
sometimes longtime friends, meaning that we just will no longer engage in those conversations with them any longer.
Right. Yeah. I have a very good friend that I've been knowing, gosh, for 50 years. And we were on the phone. This is around Thanksgiving time. And we're still friends. But at this particular time, he was having this conversation with me where he was just going off about how bad things are where he lived and the government and he's just so upset about it. And I let him rant for about 5 minutes or so. And I started to feel myself get upset by his being upset about this stuff that really can't change, right? Because I did ask him, so how does that affect your work? How does that affect you doing what you do? And after a while, Elle, I'm like, you know what? I love you, but I'm done with this talk. And okay, bye. And he hung up. But then a good thing, after that we did talk some more, and we're always good friends because we've been knowing each other and loving each other for 50 plus years. But it is, and I was willing to let that go because it's not vibrating at the frequency that I want to stay at, you know,
100%.
and
100%.
accepting where he is
Yes. And that's
because
his
of
journey.
right, and I love that, accepting people where they are because that's love.
Mhm.
If people talk
Mhm.
about unconditional love, well, love by its very nature is unconditional.
Yes.
Whew.
Yes. And those people, when they do that and you say, "Well, what do you want?" They go blank.
Right,
Nobody's ever asked me that. That's
right,
another good question to ask yourself every day. How do I want this day to look?
right,
And
right.
it's that simple. And while you're brushing your teeth, or there again, you and I are song people. I heard Dionne Warwick. I say a little prayer for you.
Right.
Before I
Right.
put on my makeup, I ask,
Right.
how do I want my day to look? And
Yeah.
so, I don't want to say it's that simple, yet it's something you can put into your daily routine, and then now it just becomes who you are,
Right.
right? By
Right.
doing that. And I
Right.
recently had a situation. So I had a friend for decades, and we were friends for lots of different reasons, and I'm not even close to the person that I was when we were friends early on. And she still is in a lot of aspects, and has been reaching out to me. It's been too long. Let's chat. Let's chat. So I haven't spoken to this woman for about 5 years or so. And so I said, I have about an hour, we can talk. I already knew I needed to set the parameter. There's the boundary, right? Of we only have an hour, because I know how she was. It's been 5 years.
Mm.
Same woman shows up me, woe is me, health, finances, marriage, kids, this, that, the other thing. And she's like, oh my gosh, well, we only have about 5 minutes left. What are you up to?
I'm up to getting off this call.
I said, thanks for asking. Life is stellar and it continues to be stellar.
Yeah,
Did it in 10 seconds.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, now I know that's an arm's length relationship still.
Right, right,
I
right,
allowed, there could have been change and then there wasn't, or at least awareness, you
right.
know, around it all. So, and I know that's hard. It's hard to hold people at arm's length because we feel bad about it. And then that's the self forgiveness. So we're coming full circle again.
Right.
Forgive yourself for releasing this person because they're not improving the quality of your life. They're not a vibrational match. They're not choosing to continue to rise. As
Right.
Zig Ziglar says, a grave is, I mean, a rut is just a grave with the ends kicked out.
Yeah.
So when
Mm.
people stay in homeostasis and they don't change and they don't release things, they don't get the help. There's lots of help out there. There's lots of
Yes.
support.
Yes.
Then it's a groundhog day
Yeah.
for many, many people.
Yeah. Yeah. And to keep people at arms, at arm's distance, or to release them, you said that, that's hard. And I had to go, well, but then you did qualify that as is the self-forgiveness. And as we continue that process, then it's not, for me, it doesn't become hard anymore. It's like, okay, one of the things that I say to clients and students is that you're the most important person in your life. So let me love me enough to go, okay, I accept where they are. That's cool. I love you and have a good day.
Yes.
And now now I can't now I will say this. It took a while for me it took practice, because yeah, this is true. Because I have friends who are just don't want to leave that lower vibration. And
Mm-mm.
that's where they've been since I've known them. Because I was there too.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, and I still love them, and I may pick up the phone maybe once a month, or send a text,
Hmm.
because they're still in my heart, and I love, because as you know,
Yeah.
I love people, but I
Mhm.
love me more. Now we laugh about that, but that's so important.
Yeah, that's not egotistical, that's spiritual.
Yeah, yeah, that's truth. Let me love myself enough not to put myself in that situation because it doesn't
Hmm.
work for me.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just reading something from Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four
Mm,
Agreements, and so I'm
mhm,
not doing it justice, just off the top of my head, was the concept that nobody is in here but us.
mm,
No matter how much I love you and how long I've known you, you are still not here. You are in my life, you are in my vibration, you are in my thoughts, in the sense of I'm thinking of you. And so it's important to keep this space tidy, because nobody's in there until you start releasing it with your words and your actions. Then they begin to kind of see what's going on.
yeah,
So it was something along the lines of nobody's in your head but you. So keep your
yeah,
house clean.
yeah,
Keep it tidy.
yeah,
For
yeah.
you, not for
Right,
guests. Yeah.
right, right. And going back, excuse me, going back to that self forgiveness or forgiveness, generally speaking, it's not for
Mhm.
that other person. Forgiveness doesn't say that whatever they did was, cool, because it wasn't.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
forgiveness, as you and I both know, forgiveness frees me up when I forgive,
Mhm.
man, man, I am so free. It's I'm gonna say it like this. It's with a capital S too. It's a selfish act.
Yes.
Yeah, it's for the self. And I tell
Mhm.
people, be selfish with that capital S. Be selfish. Do
Mhm.
what brings your
Mhm.
heart joy. And if that means let me let go of one of my closest friends, okay. If that means, okay, well, this family member just doesn't work with me, okay. I love you. If you need anything, call me. And I'm going this way.
You
Yeah.
know, I got so much flack when I moved. So I left Hawaii after 18 years and moved to Mexico. No friends here, no family, not bilingual, not fluent in Spanish. And it was like, what are you thinking? Why are you leaving us? Was like the gist of the thing. Why are you leaving us? And it's because I was called to.
Yeah.
I was called to. And
Yeah.
so I've been here now 3 years, getting my
Right.
groove. Took 3 years, and I can't even, words don't express the
Mm,
joy that I'm living now, this
yeah.
untethered soul that
Yeah.
is now here that had a lot of tethers in other places.
Yeah.
And so now people are on board because they see how happy I am. They
Yeah.
see my posts, they see the pictures, all of that.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of support. I'll just
What are you
I'll just say that.
doing? Yeah. Why are you because you were called. And that another I like to come bring everything back to self-love, right? Answering that call is an act of love. And
Mhm.
people may not, in most of the time, will not understand. I can't explain it.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. This is what I'm not even sorry, but this is what I have. I have to do this. It's a calling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I have some friends. I've been back to Honolulu at least 3 times, maybe more. And a couple of my really, really good friends have yet to visit me here in 3 years. And so they'll say, "When are you coming home? When are you coming home? When are you coming home?" And I respond, planes fly both directions.
Right?
Because I've had family and other friends visit me. I've had lots of people come visit me. You're next.
Yes.
Um,
I just had that thought too.
I heard it. And so it's just interesting. It goes back to, they're my good friends and I love them and they are positive and all that kind of thing. But I won't allow the guilt of, gee, it's been a while, I should go back.
Right. Right.
So there's none of that.
Good.
It's a teasing of, come this way, you know, it's
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what this is about, right? That's what we get to talk about all the time is letting go of those voices, that, well,
Mhm.
I should feel guilty because I haven't gone back to visit, right?
Mhm.
No, we can let that go. Um, so I left LA in 2008, was in Denver for 13 years. And I'm the one who gets on the plane to go visit friends. Nobody has ever come to see me. And for a little
Mhm.
bit, I was like, the plane does fly both ways, right? But I was like, what the hell? Y'all can come see me. Then I'm like, you know what, dude? This is what you do.
Mhm.
You're the one to go out to visit, and I
Mhm.
let go of because me
Mhm.
hanging on to that it just didn't feel good. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, let me let that go.
Mhm.
Again, being selfish about it. Psst, please, people are busy. Yeah, so am I. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, alrighty.
Yeah. I go
And
places when I'm called. So
yeah,
when I'm called back to Hawaii, I'll go. When I'm called to LA, I'll go.
right,
When I'm called to Vegas or Florida where I have family,
right.
I'll go.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I can remember. I mean, even when I moved from LA to Denver, that was a calling.
Yes.
It was like Spirit said, you're going, right? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Didn't ask. I was working for home office, and home office moved from LA to Denver, and it was like, you're going, right?
Yep.
And I
I,
sat with that
I
for
get
2 or 3 days, like, oh, okay, one of the best moves of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And because we think in songs, I have to get this one out of my head. LA proved too much for the man.
He couldn't make it.
His reasons why he'd come to know. So that's where you were at the time, right?
Right. He's leaving. He's leaving.
100%. You had the chorus of angels there guiding
Yeah.
you in the movement. And so my story quickly, how I got here was I was on my first cruise ever. I've been wanting to go on a cruise for decades. And in 2020, as the situation presented itself where I was joining my family because someone got really sick. And so her cabin became available, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. We were doing Mexican Riviera. Now I've been all over Mexico, but we were stopping in Mazatlan, a place I've never been before. So when we're here, we're on this tour and we're in this plaza, and there's a quinceañera going on. So there's flowers, there's music, there's colors, and I kid you not, the ground, la tierra, Gaia, Mother Nature spoke to me from the soles of my feet up and said, "Welcome home."
Mm,
And I get goosebumps every time I tell that story. So
mm,
that's February 2020. We get home, the planet shuts down
mm-hmm.
because all I want to do is get back and find out what was that about. So finally, I'm able to come back, and I feel the same way. I feel like this is home. I feel
Mm,
like I belong here. And now I don't have any family here. My on my father's side, the family's from other parts of Mexico. And so since we weren't close, I don't know necessarily where they are. But the point of the story is I was called to be here, like I said earlier. And so here I am.
yeah.
And when you know that you're at where you're meant to be, the amount of peace and serenity in
Yeah.
your life
Yeah.
is amazing and a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. It truly is. It
Mhm.
truly is. When we heed that call and then act upon it, then
Exactly.
yeah, and it's that action that's important, which was a good segue, the action, right, into we were speaking before we went on about affirmations, and it was great to
Mhm.
hear you say, well, I'm not a real big believer in affirmations, and you're talking to somebody who's been writing affirmations for the Science of My magazine since 2007, and I still write them, right.
Yes.
But what you said was so very, very true, right? So, and again, this is about self mastery, and affirmations are cool, but I'm going to let you speak more to that.
Affirmations are cool, and they are part of what I was saying, the mosaic. They're not the entire piece of art, beauty. And so what happens is because of the way our brain is hardwired, if our lives aren't presenting a certain way and we want to change it, so let's say it's money, then we have an affirmation of, you know, I now am financially abundant. That's a lovely affirmation. Then our brain, who's been living with us, our ego,
Mm.
says, "Who are you talking about?" Or it says, "Oh, good one," or something like that, right? We don't get the like, yeah, right? And so the affirmation, though, allows us to begin to explore what we want around that. So if I choose to be financially abundant, that means I think, I feel, and I act in certain ways. And if we're not thinking, feeling, and acting in those certain ways, the affirmation is falling on deaf ears. The affirmation means actually nothing except for that hopefully it brought the awareness to you about, well, what does that look like? And you can either do it bottom up, what does that look like in daily actions and thoughts and desires? Or you can do top down. Well, when I'm financially abundant, it looks like this, and then I'll do this because I did this, and now I'm here today. Both ways work, depends on how your brain likes to do things. And so affirmations without action, which is what you were talking about, is like, knowing but not sharing, knowing but not doing, knowing but not putting it into action.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is about that action, right? I can
Mhm.
affirm, I love this, El. I can affirm all day long that I'm in a beautiful relationship. Let's just pretend that I'm not in a relationship, right? And I want to be in a relationship. Because you were saying earlier before we went on, there were three aspects: finances, relationship, oh, and health.
Mhm.
Right. So let me just go to the health, and so my health, which it's not, this is I am a healthy person. So this is just an example, right?
Understood.
Right. Where, okay, because, people who are tuning in, they may be going through some stuff. Right. And so I can
Mhm.
affirm that I am healthy. I can affirm it. But I just can't sit back then and wait for the universe to do something. What is it that I am to
Mhm.
do?
Mhm.
Let me look at
Mhm.
how let me look at my diet and how I eat. Can I get up and exercise, even if it's just to stretch just a little bit or go for a walk? But it takes the action.
Mhm. The
Yeah.
action. Can I release some negative people from my life?
Come on now. Come on now.
In terms of relationships, I've said this most of my life, and it just flipped recently, is that I don't make friends easily. That was my
Mm.
affirmation. See, that's also an affirmation.
Yes, it is.
I, Meeting people makes me uncomfortable. I'm kind of a wallflower, like really layering this cake with all kinds of stuff, right? And then my youngest, one day started saying to me, "Not with that attitude." So I would I would say, "Oh, I don't make friends easily. Not with that attitude." Or I would say, "I just don't really have a lot of friends because it makes me uncomfortable. Not with that attitude." And finally, after enough of that reflection, that's called tough love, right?
Right.
I started thinking how often and how long I've been affirming that, so it became my
Mhm.
truth.
Right.
So when we're talking about making it positive, so I switched it and I thought, well, I can't say I make friends easily because my brain's going to say, who are you talking about?
Mhm.
Right. And so I started by saying, you know, my friends actually come to me,
Mm.
which is the truth. So I say, I don't make friends easily, but that's not the whole story. The story is people approach me, we talk, we become friends, right?
Yeah.
I don't do the approaching. So I went out and I said, I want friends. I desire friends. I want to laugh. I want to go out. I want to be around humans. I want to feel the vibration and all of that. So I went to a restaurant that has a famous bar. I'm sitting there having a glass of wine, kind of observing the thing, falling into homeostasis. This is me being the wallflower, right? And so I'm drinking some liquid courage, and after my glass of wine is finished, I see a lady sitting across the way. And again, spirit says, go speak to that woman. And because it's such a true channel of
Yeah.
communication,
Yeah.
ego might try to go, no, 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 no. But the vibration was so strong. I got up, went over and I said, hey, I introduced myself. I said, I'm here tonight just to make some friends and meet new people. And she said, so am I. And so not only are we now friends, um, I've gone on since then. So that was maybe 2 months ago. I now have between 6 and 8 friends in my little circle, this little gaggle of fun and giggles. And I have to turn down social invitations
Uh-oh.
or they'll conflict or I've got a client call or it's like, oh, you've already spent your your financial budget and it's only day 5 of the month or whatever it might be. And so it's just nice now to be in that space. Number one, I decided what I wanted
Yeah.
instead of what I didn't. And then secondly, I went out and did something about it.
Yeah.
Right. And look, it wasn't hard at all. I didn't die. I wasn't struck by lightning. I didn't go home empty handed, so to speak.
Right.
So that faith, that's the other thing,
Yeah.
having faith.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a certainty that this works. And again, listening to, so the desire was, okay, let me make, I want friends to come to me. Let me, get out there. And then, listening to that voice from within. And I want to let people know that voice, because everybody has that voice, They call it the still small voice. To me, it's not small. I call it still sacred voice. And you know that it's sacred because it never, you can tell the way that it feels. The egoic
Mhm.
voice has a different feeling, right?
Yes.
But when you listen to that voice in this particular case with the story you just relayed, it's like go over and say hi. Okay, that's the message, and then the decision to take action. So just wanting to remind people that you will hear the guidance, and it can't do anything until you take action. Yeah. Yeah. Scripture puts it,
That's
faith.
one of the first things that,
Go. Yeah. You said that's one of the first things?
um, so layering on what you just said to teach my students and my clients, the ego, number one, doesn't always feel good when it speaks. Number
Right.
two, it if it's chastising, oh, this is always where you screw up. Nope. And third, if it's focusing on what you're not doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, just when you lean in, first is feeling, how does that voice feel?
Right.
And even though a part of me was afraid, more of me was exhilarated
Yeah.
to go meet this air quote stranger.
Yeah. 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 Stay tuned, right? Stay tuned. And for me, people may be shocked to hear this, but I'm really a quiet guy. And sometimes no, I used to be afraid to show up, right? I used to my story was I don't want to be seen, right? Even though I was being seen, but I don't want to be seen until it's like, you
Yes.
know what? But because all of us are channels, we are here. Everybody is here on purpose for a purpose. Everyone is, my belief,
Yes.
right? And because
Hmm.
we all have gifts and talents that we have come with. And so, you know, people talk about, peeling the layers of the onion. I like to use, polishing the facets of the diamond,
Me
you know,
too.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I thought that I came up with that. Libby reminded me, oh, that's what she used to talk about, right? I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. But what it really is about is you know really having the courage to look at, okay, so what's keeping me from going to speak with this person? What's
Hmm.
keeping me from sitting down to write a couple of lines of a paragraph of a chapter of a book? What's
Hmm.
keep, and then being willing to follow the guidance that comes, because it's always there. Some people call it guidance, some people call it
Hmm.
the intuition, whatever you want to
Hmm.
call it. It's there. It's
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
Yeah. And learning how,
Inspiration.
inspiration,
Hmm.
and learning how to tap into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, like I said before, just who you are. Just like, I had a hard time riding a bicycle. And my mom kept at it with me until I finally stopped falling over. Now I don't think twice about getting on a bike.
Yeah.
But there can be a stickiness as we're transitioning into these new things, these new thoughts, these new feelings. And that's where the desire comes in. Are you doing it for you, or are you doing it for somebody else? You really got to be doing it for you. And that's why people say, did you do that on purpose? There's a reason why those words on purpose, because was that really in alignment with who you are?
Yeah.
Why you're here is really, really important. And we can ask ourselves that, do I want to do this on purpose?
Yeah.
Or am I doing this for somebody else? It's okay
Yeah.
to do things for other people, yet feel into that vibrational, alignment. Because
Yeah.
when we hear the voices again, I always tell people we all hear voices, hopefully, and it's okay to talk to those voices, because they say you're crazy if you talk to those voices out loud. No, the only thing that you can do that's not beneficial with those voices is argue with them. So don't argue with the voices. That would be the only thing I would say wouldn't be beneficial. But decipher who's talking,
Yeah.
why they're talking. Many times I'll say, who said that? Because sometimes a thought will come in that's not in alignment with who I believe I am now. And
Mm,
I'll say, who said that? Because
mm,
I want to know what tether is still feeling like it has purpose, right? We know in the work that we do, when we have parts that speak, they think they're helping us for the most part,
right,
protecting us, keeping us safe,
right.
right? And so you and I are similar in the sense that we can be show people. I've been teaching group fitness classes forever. I'm a professional speaker forever, have my own vlog on YouTube, podcasting with you. Yet my preference is to observe
Yeah,
because I learned so much from silent observation.
right,
But all of that knowledge means nothing if I don't then come into the light, into
right.
the spotlight.
Yeah. Mm, mm, mm. I love the way you put that. Come into the light, into the spotlight. Yeah, yeah,
Be
yeah.
seen, be
Be
heard.
be seen and be heard. Be seen and be and don't for me it's like, okay, don't be afraid to be seen, which is an interesting thing for me because there's a part of me, right? There's a part of me that loves to be seen. Life of
Uh-huh,
the
uh-huh.
party, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I don't want to be seen. It's like, how does that make sense? It's like, okay, all right. So it's like, you know what? And then to learn what that balance is, right?
Yes, the balance,
I can go
exactly.
out and teach, I can go out and speak, be on stage, have a great time playing my percussion, have a great time singing, have a great time. And then it's time to retreat,
Yes,
Okay, now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because we have triads, I'm a huge fan of triads, right? So we have our spiritual side, which allows us to hear and heed the voices, know when it's not the ego, right? And then we have our side of action, where we do these things. And then also in there is faith,
Mm,
where we believe that things will happen when we've got all of these in the mix. And no matter how you flip the triangle, what's ever at the base supports the other two. Sometimes we
mm,
lean into faith.
I love
That's
it.
what's at the base. Sometimes we lean into action. I've just got to go say hi to that woman across the bar, and sometimes we lean into, I need to get quiet now and listen. I feel like I'm doing everything and I feel like I have faith and nothing's changing. So get quiet, be the observer, sit back and say, what's this about?
Yeah.
And no matter how we flip them, the other two are always supported.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. In the philosophy of science of mind and spirit or religious science, there's this saying, right? Treat and move your feet, pray and then get into action, treat and move your feet. And I came to realize that sometimes it's not time for me to move my feet, as you were saying, right? So let me do my prayer, let me do whatever it is, and then let me sit back. So it's for me now, it's like treat and trust. So
Mm,
let me just sit back, and if it's time for me to get into action, okay, great. But if not, let me sit back and listen for what's going on.
mm-hmm,
Every major move that I have made from California to the East Coast, it didn't move until I was moved.
mm-hmm,
The Spirit said, okay, now's
mm-hmm,
the time.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's what happens when we lean too much into ego and action and we lose the other sides of the triad. A long time ago, I had this business that I was really looking forward to. It was helping people with their image, to show up and be professional and power clothes and what's your color and all this kind of stuff. And I would just like, yeah, this is great stuff. Body language, I was going to be teaching. I was really fired
hmm,
up. So I got my name, Image Makers and Seminars, and I got my logo was a pyramid, and and I got a brochure back in the day. I had my threefold brochure, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I was putting a lot of time and money into this, and it wasn't going anywhere. And so, with the help of Dr. Libby Adams, we connected, because sometimes you need that third party to help you really hear the message clearly. And I was told, you're barking up the wrong tree. This isn't for you.
mm,
I was devastated. I was angry. I
mm,
was in denial, like this can't be true, yet I knew it was, because I know the vibration felt right. And so if I had not given up that external portion of look good and then feel good, I would have never come to my business true speak, which
Mm,
is feel good and then look how good everything gets.
right. Say that
Yeah.
again.
Feel good and then look how good everything gets.
Yeah. 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 It's in that, feeling is so, so powerful. So powerful.
Mhm.
Hey, Elle, to close, is there a meditation, a short meditation that you would like to do? I know that's a quick curveball that I just threw.
you know, thanks for asking. And this has come up a lot recently, so I'd like to share it. Um, so I believe that our physical body is the temple that houses our amazing soul. And sometimes people let the temple get in disarray and begin to crumble and fall apart. And so this meditation helps people remember and honor and respect the temple.
Hmm.
Okay,
Beautiful.
so it goes like this, speaking to your temple. Now, with the eyes closed, it helps to really focus in on the physicality of breathing and your heart beating and all of those amazing things. And you say, thank you, I love you. I love you for everything you do every day without me having to ask, because you love me so unconditionally. And I promise to be a better listener and heed your words, your observations, your awareness, your intelligence, your wisdom, because I also love you. And I also promise to remember that I am literally a walking, talking, breathing miracle. And so it is.
So it is. Hmm. Ah, thank you, my dear beloved friend Elle Granell. I want to thank everybody for tuning in once again to the Academy of Self Mastery podcast. We are here every week. Elle is the third co host, so I have three. And so from now on, what's going to be happening once a week is I will have one of these three delightful, brilliant co-hosts with me, and then the other 4 weeks, then there will be someone else, and so then the other month, then there'll be another co-host. So you're going to see Elle again, as yeah. So again, thank you so very much. Be a friend. Share this with somebody. Shucks, tell a friend and share it with everybody that you can, because together we are here to change the planet. Peace and abundant blessings to everyone. We'll see you next time.